Rude CEO fires black janitor, then regrets it when he learns his true identity. But before we start the story, please subscribe to my channel and let me know where you are watching from. Samuel, the modest janitor, has always kept his head down at the upscale Carlton Enterprises. For years, he was the invisible man constantly cleaning up after others while going unnoticed. But that day, something changed. Richard Carson, the CEO known for his harsh style and frosty demeanor, brought him to his office. When Samuel stepped in, the air felt thick with anxiety. Without warning, Richard struck out, accusing Samuel of neglect. "You're not cut out for this," he scoffed. "This is a company of excellence, not a place for mediocrity." Samuel remained still, disbelief filling his head. There had been no complaints and no prior warnings. The statements felt harsh and unfair. Richard dismissed him with a careless smirk, and the door banged shut behind him. Samuel's heart fell. As he packed his belongings, the office's silence resonated through his ears. Employees who had previously greeted him with a smile now glanced aside, avoiding his gaze. No one provided help. Nobody said a thing. Samuel walked out of the building, the weight of rejection pressing on his shoulders. Something did not add up. Richard's rage was too swift and fierce. There had to be more to it. As the door closed behind him, a terrifying thought entered his mind. Was it truly all about his work? Or was there something deeper going on? Samuel's life went apart following the shooting. With no work, income, or anyone to turn to, he fell into a deep, lonely struggle. His pride prevented him from asking for assistance, and each day felt like a perpetual battle against the weight of rejection. The debts piled up. The future was dismal, and the silence of his co-workers plagued him. But something gnawed at him. Richard's outrage was not limited to his work. Samuel couldn't shake the sensation that there was something personal lurking beneath that harsh dismissal. His mind raced as he recalled each moment leading up to the meeting. Strange looks from certain staff and hushed chats behind closed doors. The chatter he overheard in the hallways suggested that Richard was under more pressure than anyone understood. In his darkest moments, Samuel discovered an odd ally, Aisha, a former colleague who had always been friendly to him. She leaned out, her voice low and concerned. "Something's wrong, Samuel," she said. "Richard isn't the man he used to be. He's acting differently. It's like something is eating away at him." Samuel, determined to discover the truth, began digging. Late evenings were spent combing through old corporate documents, following leads and identifying patterns. But what he discovered made his stomach turn, a link between Richard's family and his own, buried deep in history. Samuel had no idea at the time, but this was merely the beginning of a revelation that would throw everything on its head. As the days passed, Samuel's investigation began to reveal a complex network of secrets. Aisha, who had become his confidant, advised him to be cautious, but Samuel was too deep to quit now. The farther he dug, the more it became clear. Richard's outburst was not a random act of malice. It was based on something dark and personal. One evening, while sifting through company files, Samuel came across a series of old emails. They brought up a loan between the Carsons and a businessman whose name Samuel hadn't heard in years, his father. His father, a former business magnate, had loaned Richard's father a large sum of money in the early 1990s. However, the obligation was never returned. Samuel froze, a chill running down his spine. The truth was hidden in plain sight. The relationship between the two families was more than just a business transaction. A series of unfulfilled promises, lies, and secrets had defined Richard's existence. Samuel recognized that it was influencing his own. Richard wasn't only angry with him, he was afraid, desperate to delete any recollection of the past that could destroy him. Then, just as Samuel was going to face Richard about what he had discovered, the entire firm was rocked by a scandal. Richard's dubious business operations, which had kept his family afloat for so long, were discovered. Suddenly, the guy who had fired Samuel so harshly was racing to salvage his empire. Was it too late for Richard to rehabilitate himself? Samuel was unsure. The reality was still too entangled, and he was not done yet. Samuel's hands trembled as he studied the materials late into the night. The puzzle pieces were falling into place, but the overall image was darker than he could have imagined. The loan his father provided to Richard's family was more than just money. It was a lifeline for Richard's father's struggling business. But that loan, hidden beneath decades of quiet, had been lost to history. Samuel's father had never mentioned it to anyone, and now he realized why. Richard Carson's demise was caused by his undisclosed debt. The burden of his family's outstanding commitments had driven him to take unsafe risks and make merciless decisions that lost others their reputations. Richard was fighting not just for power but also for survival. His vicious temperament, the arrogant CEO demeanor, was the mask of a man attempting to conceal decades of failures. However, it wasn't simply business anymore. Samuel's investigation uncovered something much more surprising. His father had been a silent partner in one of Richard's most significant transactions, an acquisition that had taken Richard's family to the top, but Samuel had no idea. The debt was more than just financial. It was personal. Richard's empire was built on a falsehood, one that linked his family's destiny to Samuel's in ways Samuel could never have anticipated. The reality was now evident. Richard's rage and decision to fire Samuel were not motivated just by a missed cleaning task. It was due to something deeper, which both families had buried for years. Samuel now had the key to destroy Richard and disclose everything, but did he truly want to? Was vengeance worth it? Was there any way to end this convoluted story? The weight of the decision weighed hard on Samuel's shoulders. The tightness in Samuel's chest was overwhelming as he stood in Richard Carson's polished glass office. Everything had led up to this point. He had the truth, the damning paperwork, the family secrets, but for a brief moment, he paused. Was confronting Richard the correct decision? Was he merely another pawn in this vengeful game? Or could he reverse the tide and put an end to the madness? When Richard eventually entered the office, he glanced up from his desk, his face pallid, his normally haughty demeanor replaced with a raw, desperate edge. "You've been digging, haven't you?" Richard's voice was softer than normal, his arrogance dissolving into something darker. "You don't know what you're playing with, Samuel." Samuel did not flinch. "I know exactly what I'm playing with. The truth." He slapped the papers down on the desk, the weight of their family's debts, hidden agreements, and lies staring Richard in the face. Richard's face contorted and his barriers crumbled as he took up the documents. His hands shook, his gaze searching the pages in bewilderment. How did you find this?" His voice faltered and his pride fell through the holes. "Do you think you can destroy me with this? You have no idea what I have gone through, what my family has gone through." Samuel stood tall. "I understand what you have been through, Richard. You've been avoiding the truth by hiding behind your power and rage, but this is bigger than you. You owe my father. You owe me." Richard's eyes darkened. "I didn't want any of this to happen," he said, his voice barely audible. "I was attempting to protect, to safeguard us. I didn't know how to make things right." Samuel's fury subsided. He could see the broken man behind the CEO mask, crushed by the weight of his family's past. But it was too late for forgiveness. Not now. Not after all. "You cannot solve this." "Not anymore," Samuel replied coldly. "But you will pay for what you've done." As Samuel turned to leave, Richard sunk back into his chair, his expression a mix of defeat and sadness. For the first time in years, Carlton Enterprises' CEO was completely broken, and Samuel, he had just taken the first step in recovering his father's heritage. However, the war was not over. Definitely not. Samuel's admission sparked an instant and passionate reaction. Carlton Enterprises was thrown into disorder, and the public outrage was massive. Richard Carson's empire, which was founded on lies and deceit, began to disintegrate. The media was buzzing with reports about the family's hidden debt, the cover-up, and Richard's dramatic showdown with the fired janitor. Samuel was everywhere right now, making it impossible to ignore him. But Samuel didn't enjoy the attention. He did not seek vengeance, but rather justice. Even though Richard had been publicly humiliated, Samuel was not done. His mind raced, not with thoughts of victory, but with the reality of the duty that now rests on his shoulders. He had disclosed the truth, but the issue remained. What next? In the days that followed, Samuel spoke with his father's old business associates, some of whom were too terrified to speak up about the debt. With each conversation, a new plan gradually emerged. Instead of accepting Richard's invitation to rejoin the company, Samuel made a risky move. He used the evidence he had obtained to clear his father's name. The loan was more than simply money. It represented power, legacy, and family honor. Samuel assumed command of the company's destiny, leading the push to repay the debt Richard's family had ignored for so long. Richard, on the other hand, disappeared from public view. His pride wounded, he withdrew, but not before leaving Samuel with one final, unexpected gift: a handwritten note of apology, recognizing the debt, the faults, and his own involvement in breaking the bond between their families. As Samuel stood in the solitude of his new office, peering out at the skyline, he couldn't help but feel at ease. The truth had prevailed, but more importantly, Samuel had regained his father's legacy, not through vengeance, but through integrity, courage, and forgiveness. It was not only the CEO who had changed. Samuel had also evolved. He was no longer the unseen janitor. He was a man of power, purpose, and unwavering resolve. And when he sat at his father's old desk ready to rule, he had a realization. Eliminating Richard was not the genuine win. It was about choosing to soar above it all. If you enjoyed the story, then do not forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel for more daily stories. Also, do tell your thoughts in the comments box.